Welcome to this explainer. You know, for literally years, Hollywood has sold us this total fairy tale arc of love, right? The credits roll right after that big dramatic kiss in the rain, and we're just left to assume they ride off into the sunset and never ever argue about, say, how to properly load the dishwasher. But the real arc of a relationship, well, it's so much messier. It's highly biological. And honestly, it's way more fascinating than any rom-com out there. Today, we're going to explore the actual biological map of love. Okay, let's dive into this because when that initial honeymoon phase ends, most of us just panic. We think, oh no, I chose the wrong person, or we feel this immense shame because suddenly we're fighting all the time. But what if your relationship didn't actually just get hard? What if your nervous system simply woke up? Let's go ahead and drop the shame right now. Relationship conflict isn't a failure. It's actually a completely predictable biological event. So here's our structural map for today. We're going to walk through the 4 distinct developmental stages of a relationship chronologically. First up is the biological illusion. Then we hit the waltz of pain. Third is the biological protocol. And finally, we get to build in the sovereign US. All right, let's kick things off with stage 1, the biological illusion, or as I like to think of it, what happens when your nervous system basically sends a stunt double to start your relationship. We usually call this stage romance or the merge, where your biology is actively conspiring to bond you to your partner. See, romance isn't an accident. It is a full-blown biological takeover. Your brain is flooding your system with this super potent neurochemical cocktail. We're talking dopamine, oxytocin, and norepinephrine. It's basically a biologically sanctioned drug bender. And what this cocktail actually does is it actively suppresses threat detection in your brain. It literally forces your amygdala, your brain's internal alarm system, to just chill out. This chemical state closely mimics addiction, making you feel this intense consuming bond. It feels absolutely amazing, but it also means you literally aren't operating as your normal baseline self. Now, what's really fascinating here is this concept of the representative.
Because you're hopped up on that drug cocktail, your nervous system is running a program to bond at all costs. So you end up sending in this highly curated, super flexible, charming version of yourself, your representative. Now, you aren't being fake or intentionally dishonest here. Your nervous system is just actively filtering out any complications. It's intentionally deferring the whole messy reckoning of your true differences until your bond is actually solid enough to survive them. But here's the catch. This chemical state, which researchers call limerence, is incredibly metabolically expensive for your body to maintain, and it comes with an expiration date. Your brain simply cannot sustain it forever. Usually, somewhere between 6 to 24 months in, that chemical anesthesia starts wearing off. The representative packs their bags and leaves, and the real people with all their quirks, childhood wounds, and survival strategies finally meet face to face. It's when that anesthesia fades that the real relationship actually begins, which brings us crashing right into stage 2, the waltz of pain, or the collision of nervous systems. This is the chaotic, intensely painful reality where the vast majority of couples tragically get stuck sometimes for months, years, or literally decades. Let's break down the core dynamic of this painful waltz. When that neurochemical haze lifts, your old deep-seated survival strategies violently collide, and this dynamic usually organizes around 2 specific roles. First, we have the protester, terrified of abandonment. They move toward the relationship when they feel threatened. They pursue, they text constantly, they escalate conflict just to get a response. On the flip side, we have the withdrawer, Terrified of inadequacy, they move away when threatened. They shut down, detach, and retreat to reduce emotional overwhelm. So the protester reaches harder, and in response, the withdrawer retreats further. It is a devastating, endless loop of two nervous systems desperately trying to survive what feels like the loss of connection. And this whole chaotic dance, it's entirely driven by the amygdala hijack. During this stage, even a tiny perceived slight, like say your partner just glancing out the window while you're talking, can cause the amygdala to fire instantly. This plunges both of you straight into survival mode. Your logical, rational prefrontal cortex goes completely offline before you even realize what happened. Suddenly, you have zero access to logic and absolutely no access to empathy. So, the crucial rule to remember, and I really want this to relieve you of any blame, is this: you cannot apply a cognitive solution to a biological problem. This right here is exactly why reading communication books or trying to negotiate fairly during a screaming match always fails. You cannot communicate your way out of a nervous system hijack. You're basically asking two people whose houses are actively on fire to sit down and calmly discuss the architecture. It's just not going to happen. To escape this trap, we have to move to stage 3, the biological protocol. This is where we deliberately slow everything down, where we really focus on nervous system regulation, and where we finally begin building true stability and conscious partnership. To do this, there's a biological protocol with 4 completely unskippable steps. First, safety. You have to calm the amygdala and physically lower your heart rate. Second, connection. Establish some trust so the bond can actually be felt again. Third, cognitive access. This is where your prefrontal cortex finally comes back online. And only then can you do step 4, problem solving. See, most stuck couples disastrously try to skip straight to step 4 while their internal alarms are still blaring. It is biologically impossible. You absolutely have to follow the protocol. So how do we actually establish that initial safety? Well, it starts with this magic number, 90. Effective neuroscience tells us that the neurochemical cascade triggered by a highly emotional event lasts roughly 90 seconds in the body. If you and your partner can just pause and breathe for 90 seconds, that initial intense wave of biological panic will pass. Any continued emotional reaction after a minute and a half, that's being maintained by your thoughts, not your biology. Once you've managed to take those 90 seconds, you can use a structured tool to build stability, the RAVE method. First, reflect back exactly what you heard without injecting your own interpretation or rebuttal. Next, accept that their experience is incredibly real to them. Then validate that their feelings actually make perfect sense given their unique history and fears. And finally, explore the underlying attachment need. The RAVE method is a game changer because it acts as a bridge, bringing you safely into your partner's reality instead of just defensively guarding your own. When that stability actually becomes a regular practice, we get to advance to our final destination on the map, stage 4, building the sovereign US. This is the hard-won reality of mature love. It's where real co-creation happens and the relationship transforms into a generative engine. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of stage 4, the 3 sovereign entities of me, you, and us. You see, most couples only ever recognize the me and the you, basically treating the whole relationship as this exhausting zero-sum negotiation. But co-creating couples, they treat the US as a living, breathing organism, one that requires its own separate feeding, attention, and protection. When you make a decision, you don't just ask if it's good for you or good for me. You ask, hey, is this good for the US? To feed that us. We have to accept a pretty profound truth. Love is proof of work.
In stage 4, love isn't just some passive, warm, fuzzy feeling that comes and goes with the weather. It is the consistent daily proof of work. It's the incredibly tough act of crossing over into your partner's reality, even when you really, really don't want to. It's letting go of that desperate need to be right, even when your dysregulated biology is screaming at you to just win the argument. You do the right thing and you let the feelings follow. But I do have to warn you about something called the return, because life stressors, they're going to hit. A new job, a scary health crisis, a profound loss. Old wounds are absolutely going to get triggered, and that painful waltz of pain will briefly make a comeback. Regression is completely inevitable. But here's the thing, true relationship health isn't measured by some fantasy of never, ever fighting again. It's measured by the speedy recognition of the pattern and the skill of your repair. It's all about how fast you can find your way back to each other, which leaves us with this final vital question. Are you ready to stop waiting for Hollywood magic and actually start doing the proof of work? Look, a lasting, thriving relationship isn't just something you fall into. It is a distinct set of biological and relational skills that you build together day after day. So learn your map, regulate your nervous system, and just watch what the two of you can co-create. If you want to work on this for real, try Figlet, my AI relationship coaching app. You can start for free, no credit card needed, at figlet.empathy.com.